Hey everybody, welcome to part 2 of this rhythm composition series. Today I want to go deeper into what makes beats interesting and compelling. I want to go over topics like syncopation and how to evolve beats, how to use interesting artifacts such as flams. We have a lot of good stuff to cover, and if you haven't watched the first part, you're welcome to do so. The link will be somewhere around here. Hopefully you'll enjoy this one as well. I really appreciate the comments on the first part, and it really gave me a lot of energy to go ahead and do the follow-up. The first topic I want to cover in this video is syncopation. Syncopation is a word used to describe the use of uncommon beat positions or offbeats, and it's one of the most interesting and useful methods to make your beats kind of stand out and become more complex. Let me lay out the basics here real quick. So we have a grid of 16th notes here with hi-hats and kicks and rim shots. Let's listen to it. Excellent. I'm not accenting anything on the hi-hat, that's on purpose. And let's see what happens when I switch the rim shot to the second 16th note here. Now this would be considered a syncopated beat. Let's switch it over again. And again. So this is just the basic level of understanding that a syncopated beat means that you have some sort of rhythmic backbone, in this case the kick drum on 1 and 3, and the snare on 2 and 4 is the backbeat, and then you shift a beat over and you create a syncopated feeling in the backbeat. Cool. Now syncopation can also happen in other instruments, so you can take an open hi-hat and place it on the second 16th note here, and it would sound like this. So that's a fun way to kind of explore how to make your beat more interesting just by varying on what 16th note is accentuated and using the second and fourth 16th notes as your sort of prime syncopated positions. So placing anything else on a second and fourth 16th note in any lane would give that sort of syncopated feeling. So moving on with the basics, another thing that would help you understand what I said about relativity here is to see what happens when I shift everything over 1/16th note. So I can use the arrow keys here. If I press and hold the right arrow key, I can make these twirl around. Woo, pretty colors. Let's play it and I'll start clicking away. Now check out what happens if I leave it playing for a while. We said before that the second 16th note is a syncopated position, but probably by now you can't help but listen to this as if this is the one of the bar. So if you have no other indication of what's going on in the music, where the downbeat is, you will lose track of what's syncopated. And it will happen again, no matter which way I twist it, if I make all the beats even here. Again, super difficult to maintain the syncopated feel if you have no point of reference or nothing to be syncopated against. So just to fix that, let's open the hi-hat here on the first beat. I don't know how you feel, but the gravity of the kick drum on the third 16th note still makes it seem like this is syncopated, right? So there's a sort of masking going around here, which is pretty interesting. The instrumentation you're using and what gets syncopated has an effect on how you perceive the rhythm. So in this case, because the gravity of the kick drum is so much greater than the hi-hat, and we're so used to listening to kick drums on the first beat, it makes it seem like the hi-hat is syncopated as opposed to the kick drum, which is really syncopated. So let's try and push down that line, and I recorded this sort of bass line here. It goes like this. That's pretty standard. Now let's play the kick and snare. Isn't it interesting that by unmuting the bass line, I created the syncopated feeling in the kick and snare because now the bass line has gravity. So the fact that the bass line is laying out such a clear and concise rhythm liberates the kick and snare to be syncopated throughout the beat. And again, if I mute the bass line, it might take you 3 or 4 cycles until it just sounds like nothing is syncopated. Let's play it with the bass line. Now let's shift it to a second or fourth 16th note, which is the more syncopated feel. Fourth 16th note, there we go. How cool is that? Just by shifting the kick and snare positions evenly and laying out the foundation of the rhythm with the bass, I can get some very interesting grooves happening. And this is with keeping all the beat positions for the kick and snare exactly the same. I'm not even creating internal syncopation between the kick and snare here. This is just for you to understand the relative aspect of syncopation and the effect that the instrumentation has on the syncopated feeling of a groove. Let's do something fun. Let's duplicate this. Let's run all different variations of the 16th note positions throughout here. Let's go. You can really do something that feels like it's pushing towards the next bar. Check out what happens on the 4th bar here, just before the 1. There's a sense of tension building, and then it clearly releases on the first cycle here. So let's check it out again. So this feels like it's winding up, and then at the maximum tension point, it releases back again. The more you syncopate, the more tension is built up, and then switching back to your foundational groove will always feel really great. When I play slap bass and I really want to make the line interesting, I might take a single part of the bar, like even, 2 quarter notes, and just play almost no notes on the beat. Like everything would be offbeat, and then I'll land right on the downbeat on the next bar. And that would feel way more exciting than just playing, straight 16th notes on the beat. So moving on, let's revert back to our previous layout here. So we have the bass line on the first line here, we have the hi-hat, and then we have the kick and snare. Let's try and start syncopating just the rim shots here, just the 2 and 4. So we'll move that here, and this one here. Move this one here, this one here. Let's feel all the counter positions of the syncopations with beats. So in this one, it would be here and a kick here. And the rim shots here, I don't want to do the 8th note offbeat. Let's stick with the 16th note positions. Let's do this here and this here. If I duplicate this and we go back to a normal structure here, let me turn this off, do 2, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, there we go. So in the first bar here, something interesting is happening. I syncopated it enough so it kind of masks the backbeat. So the way I listen to it right now, I can barely tell if there even is a backbeat. And even the 1 and 3 on the kick drum, and the bass line landing on perfect 8 notes, none of that almost matters. It sort of stretches thin and almost loses context, and when the straight beat lands right after it, you get this feeling of everything is resolved, right? So your ear sort of says thank you, and you feel more relaxed now that you know where the beat is. So this is like a microcosm that I showed right now of the power of using syncopation in your beat making. So here you're basically masking the backbeat and then showing it in full force. That's how I usually explore. So I'll play against a bass line or some melodic instrument that gives a sense of direction to the melody. That's always how my ear locates. I have a feeling of where I am in the bar, usually by a melody going somewhere or a harmonic phrase, and then the kick and snare. You know, being a bass player, that's what I ask in the monitor. So I want the keys, vocals, and kick and snare. Usually I don't ask for anything, so that might have been a lie. But in shows where I have to, that's usually what I need. So just to summarize, syncopation is the use of any uncommon beat position within a bar, and it does have to be relative to your backbeat. So if you use only syncopated beat positions, you will end up losing the meaning of the word. It's like when you say something too much and you have no idea what it means anymore. You do have to create a relationship between your backbeat, your foundation, and then the syncopation should be a sort of counterpart and a tool you use in order to make the beat more complex and to create tension within the groove so you can release it and go back to your foundation. That's the basics of it. You can syncopate either with the main beats, the kick and snare, that would have maximum effect. You can create sort of micro syncopations within hi-hat movements or percussion movements, and that would be a sort of a spice. If you want to maintain a syncopated, interesting feeling, but leave the backbeat intact, that's a great way to do it. Go to your hi-hat and just use like 2nd 16th note here and 4th 16th note here and check this out. Man, I love this groove. I want to play to it. As far as I'm concerned, this is the best of both worlds, because you get this basic groove going on that you can play anything on, and then you have this sort of spicy syncopation happening in the percussion. So that's another way you can use this, which is sort of middle ground, because sometimes shifting the kick and the snare is doing too much. So in Beat Scholar, as you can see, it's fairly easy to locate the beats that are syncopated and also to play around with these concepts. Using the left and right arrows, you can always shift a single pizza around. You can also, like, if you press the down arrow, you can basically mirror an entire lane or a pizza. So you can just mess around with beat positions this way. So now I want to talk about evolving and devolving beats. So sometimes you come up with your perfect groove, like I did before with the syncopated hi-hat, and then you're like stuck because maybe you made the beat too complex and now it's really difficult to move forward from it. Maybe you made it too simple and you have no idea how to make something that sounds like it's the natural continuation. Either way, there's like a technique to take the essence of a beat and sort of expand on it. In music, it's called like a motif. So you take a melody and then when it comes back the second time, you add some information that wasn't there before, but you maintain sort of the core essence of what made the melody so unique. In this beat, let's check out what happens here. I pretty much like this, and I want to create a second part. So I can duplicate this, and we'll call this A, and guess what? We'll call this one B. Incredible. So we just listened to A, and I want B to feel like it evolves from A. Now, when I listen to this groove, there is one area in particular that I define as sort of a crucial area in the beat, which is this part, the 3rd and 4th beats. Let's listen to them here. So there's a sequence that goes open hi-hat, rim shot, and then whatever this symbol. I'll try and imitate it. This thing here really does it for me. It's two syncopated positions with the fourth and second 16th notes here, and then the rim shot backbeat lands on the 4. Why am I laying this out for you? Because on this part, I want to take this feeling of 3 consecutive notes with different pitches and starting on the 4th 16th note and ending on the 2nd 16th note, and I want to shift it around. So I want to take it away from here. Let's flatten this out. And I want to move this artifact, this 3-note melody that I put there before, I want to move it here. So I want to do like something like, let's do center snare, kick, and then rim shot here. And we can even delete the second bar. And let's see how it feels switching from A to B here. I have a feeling it's all right, but I don't know if it's enough to carry a song from the verse to the chorus. So it feels like a minor buildup. Let's try and further explore what's going on here. Another element that you can use is taking something that happens once on the first part and making a habit out of it on the second part. So this is like hinting at something here, and then it becomes a major part here. So let's check this out. Let's see how it feels to switch between them now. So now I think it feels way better switching from A to B. And what I did here is basically taking one little area here and just moving the instrumentation around. So playing it with the snare, kick, and rim shot here. And taking another element from the A part, which is just an open hi-hat on the 2nd 16th note, and recreating it here on every beat. So this is the way I like to maintain a sort of internal reference within a tune and make sure I keep using the same elements and just kind of masking them differently, giving them a different interpretation in instruments. This is a very basic concept that applies to just about any arrangement that you work on. So even with melodic or harmonic instruments, if you recognize the hook, if you recognize the area where your ear kind of perks up and you say, well, this is obviously good, but where do I go from here? Instead of trying to compose something new, break it apart to the areas that excite you and try to move them around. You can move them around in range, in instrumentation. You can shift the beat around. So that's like the next thing I'd try to do is maybe go to the B part and say, well, this feels fine and dandy, but maybe I don't want the 2nd 16th note here. Maybe I want to use the concept of the open hi-hat on an offbeat, but I want to explore which offbeat sounds the best. So I can hold down the right key here and shift this over here. So let's... Apparently I was right the first time, this one sounds the best, but the concept remains the same. You have to recognize something that you enjoy and explore what happens to it in various situations, and then it helps you kind of zone in on what's your style. That's a big point to make here. Developing a personal style is just several thousand aha moments where you figure out something about your composition or the piece you're playing or the beat you're making. And then you kind of collect that into your subconscious and you say, okay, I like that. That now becomes a part of me. But recognizing these moments and exploring them, it helps you eliminate the noise and just find the thing that will eventually become part of your vocabulary. So I laid out several interesting ways to use syncopation, both in your money tracks like kick and snare, and also in your percussion tracks. You know what, let's listen to this with the bass line for a second. So I covered how to evolve a beat, but let's see about devolving it. So let's see about creating space. Let's see how we maintain musical context with the beat, but we air it out to allow for other instruments to join, or maybe we want to space it out just so the beat feels bigger. So that's something I covered in the previous video. You're welcome to check it out if you want. How kick and snare relate to the feeling of size, and how the hi-hat relates to the feeling of time passing by. So let's make this beat more, complex for a second. Do this, use my own advice. That's pretty cool, but maybe you feel like it's, maybe I'm doing too much, as some people say. A, B, C. So let's devolve this one. Now this is way easier than evolving actually, because usually it would require just removing certain pieces. So there is an art form to it. It's not just deleting random beats. One of the first things I try to do is switch to a halftime feel in the hi-hat or in the percussion track. So I'll do something like leave all the syncopated, cool, funky bits in, and then just remove the 16th note offbeat or the 8th note offbeat here, and listen to it. If this is not enough, I'll go ahead and remove even further. So I'll even remove the first beat here. This is starting to feel all right, but just to check it out, let's leave all these. Let's make a rule for ourselves with just one hi-hat per beat. Nope, except here. I maintain the syncopations here, so these beats are still accentuated and it does feel more aired out, but I think the kick and rim shot here, I can do without this one. So pushing 2 kick drums here on the first and second 8 notes here, maybe too much. And maybe I want to do something like leave this one here and remove the backbeat. And something cool you can try at home is one snare rule. I just made it up. So the rule says that the bar has just one position for a snare, and it sounds like this. I like it. I think it's time to do something like switch between them and see if we can get that evolving feeling going. So this is A. This might be a cool intro for our song. Now we're getting into it. This could be the verse or whatever. And C. I have to say that C doesn't feel like the chorus, it feels like a bridge. So I'm going to go ahead and create a D part. I really know why it doesn't feel that way. Because of this here. So there's 2 kick drums on the 3 and 4, and this beat is weaker because it just has a snare. So let's do something interesting. Let's add a lane here and make sure there's a kick drum on every beat, just like this, and delete all of them from here. Oh, I'm on one shot. Okay, so one shot mode is off, so I need to take into account the length. So I created another evolution here with the D part, which basically meant I added the kick drum on every first 8 note here. And I also added some additional beats here because I really want this to be pushed forward much more than the previous ones. So let's listen to how we evolved our beat here. This is really a bridge. So this is building up to the chorus. And this is perfect for the chorus, just sort of pushes forward and, gives you that feeling of everything's possible here. And then back to the bridge. And maybe a breakdown, so back to the first part. This is a classic like part for, you know, setting up somebody to start singing. And then it goes into the verse. So as I said before, I started with B here, and then I created 3 parts from it. I created A by stripping away information from it, mostly rhythmic information that's more like generic, rather than removing the syncopated parts and the parts that make up the motifs. So, you know, like these artifacts, the open hi-hats on the syncopated beats, or the interesting positions for kicks and rim shots. So I tried not to touch these, but I did remove a bunch of like hi-hats that have no specific dynamics or something to make them stand out. And I created C by taking this area from the B part, so open hi-hat, rim shot, and then the cymbal here. And I shifted it to our kick and snare. And I used the second 16th note open hi-hat from the B part here. And I made it recurring throughout the bar. And I created the D part by putting a kick drum under every beat, maintaining the open hi-hat on the second 16th note, and then leaving the rim shots intact. And maybe the only thing I added that wasn't there is ghost note snare here. I recognize the hooks, the strong areas where I feel the beat shines. I tried to keep them intact while shifting things around them or removing or adding things around them. And I took the elements and I either changed the instrumentation or I made them reoccurring within the bar to sort of strengthen. The last thing I want to show you is just kind of a trick, but something pretty unique to Beat Scholar that you might enjoy. I'm going to write out just 4 hi-hats here. This is not going to sound that great, but wait, in a second, you'll see. So now what I want to do is create a flam here. Flam is basically 2 hits that happen with no distinct musical time, but they're close enough together so we hear them as sort of one big downbeat. So I'll press Command and I'll just start dragging up until the beats here are kind of close together. And let's copy it over here. Let's listen to this. That's pretty cool. I think 2 things. I think there's way too much reverb on the snare and on this as well. This is pretty cool, but also, yeah, I want it tighter, so I'm just going to click and drag up and click and drag up here. You don't even need it to be exactly the same timing. It can be also pretty cool to do it like inaccurately. Let's make this one really tight. That's awesome. So you can change the order of the instruments here to create a different sounding flam. And you can just play around very loosely with the timing by holding down Command here and dragging up or down or using the pizza slicer. Let's see what happens if we really go crazy with the length, with the measure here. It's a nice way to design this super crunchy backbeat to your groove. And there's like no complex math about it. There's no like exact subdivision you need to use for a flam. It's a matter of feeling. And usually because it has such a gravity, I like spacing out the next kick drum or the next beat. Maybe if I empty this out entirely, it might also sound cool with just the 2 flams here. Just for fun, because I can't help myself, I'm going to add a quintuplet here and mess up the dynamics a little bit and check this out. So that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments. And if you want me to cover any specific topics, I'd love to hear from you. Hope you had fun and maybe learned something, and see you in the next one. If you want to learn more about BeatScholar, check out our website at modalics.com. You can find out more about our product line, and we usually run either giveaways or a freebie or something cool. Like we have Plugin Buddy, which is this VST3 host we made that also has a bunch of free useful tools for MIDI and even audio. So hit us up on the website, on Discord, on this video, wherever you want.